Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fabulous Wednesday. Thank you to everyone at the Hamilton County Young Republicans who came out last night. That's where I was yesterday when the show would have otherwise been airing in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Awesome time, great turnout. I hope you guys enjoyed the event as much as I did. I'll be with you today, obviously, and tomorrow. And then we'll head into the weekend. We got a bunch of different stories to hit as the college and pro football season inches closer and closer. And I want to start with the front page of the New York Times. And I thought this was very, very interesting in general. The data is continuing to collapse when it comes to the number of people out there that are supportive of the Democrat Party. And New York Times front page, I believe we have a couple of cuts. This may be first the editorial. Let me hit. You know, the world is changing when suddenly in the New York Times they start to sound like OutKick the show. And so I believe we have first, this was the Sunday New York Times. I'm kicking back. This is the main editorial from the newspaper. And the Sunday New York Times says, hey, by the way, we shouldn't have shut down schools. We shouldn't have shut down churches. Yeah, our bad. We got that wrong. And then they also said, oh, by the way, defund the police was a disastrous decision. And that was a really poor choice. And I read it and I said, well, you're about 5 years too late, because I was one of the only people out there that was saying, hey, this is all moronic. It makes absolutely no sense to in any way shut down the police, because the police are protecting overwhelmingly Black and Hispanic families who are far more likely to be victims of violent crime than white or Asian families are. And so when you are saying, hey, we don't need police anymore, what you're effectively saying is areas with rates of high crime, we should just let people fend for themselves there. And I said this was lunacy. And we saw it lead to skyrocketing near record numbers of murders. And then what happens? We start to let police do their jobs, and the murder rates start to come back down. And I think this ties in, honestly, and this is a big part of what I write about in Balls. My new book that's going to be out in November, which I would encourage you guys to go sign up for. ESPN turned Colin Kaepernick into a hero starting in 2016 when he knelt during the national anthem, almost exactly 9 years ago now. Some of you may say, well, that's a long time ago, Clay. Why are you talking about Colin Kaepernick today? Well, just a couple of days ago, major story, I think, came out, and you can put the graphic up. This was according to Reuters, and it's since been confirmed by multiple people, but this is the New York Post headline about it. And I don't know how much we wrote about it at OutKick, but I think it's a really big story. The ESPN powers that be decided that they were going to cancel a Spike Lee Colin Kaepernick documentary. This is a big deal. And what it represents, I think, is the argument that I've been making for some time actually being true, which is, you guys remember Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf? I do, because I'm a huge college basketball fan. And a lot of you may remember him better as Chris Jackson, star shooting guard of the LSU team, gets drafted, decides that he's a Muslim, changes his name to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. For my money, Chris Jackson and Shaquille O'Neal in the early 90s LSU is as good of an inside-outside combo as I've ever seen in the history of college basketball. That was under the legendary leadership, I believe I'm correct in all this, of LSU men's basketball coach Dale Brown. LSU had with Shaq, who I believe stayed 3 years in college basketball at LSU, and in Chris Jackson, a.k.a. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, one of the greatest inside-outside combinations of all time. Back in, I think it was like the late 90s or early 2000s, all the years start to run together because I'm getting old. I know David Stern was the commissioner of the NBA. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf said, I'm not going to stand for the national anthem. And David Stern said, wait a minute, son. Yeah, you are. Because David Stern ruled the NBA, I think he was commissioner from 84 to 2014, with an iron fist. And he said, this league is not going to get defined as anti-American. Every player is going to stand for the national anthem. And they ended up having some sort of an agreement, compromise, as it were, where Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf would stand, but he would just kind of be in quiet prayer during the national anthem. And the story went away. And a lot of you right now, when I mention Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, you've never heard of him. He was the original Kaepernick. And what happened was, basically, his stance was so unpopular that they effectively wrote him out of the entire American basketball community. I don't know if Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf is still alive. I assume that he is. I haven't seen him interviewed. I haven't seen him make news in decades. Same thing starting to happen with Colin Kaepernick. ESPN saying, hey, we're not going to do some Spike Lee anti-American hagiography about Colin Kaepernick. His era is over. 9 years after his protest, he basically has been written off the American sporting calendar. And I think he's going to end up like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, where another decade from now, a lot of you, if I'm still doing a show and I mention Colin Kaepernick, people are going to have gotten so young that they don't even remember Colin Kaepernick. Because what he stood for was actually not accurate. And that is the idea that America is a fundamentally awful, racist country. It's not there. And one of the ideas, maybe this needs to be my next book, about why support for the Democrat Party is collapsing, is ultimately, I think all of us are defined by the best and worst moments of our life. But if you put them on sort of a spreadsheet, I always like to, let me kind of metaphor here a little bit. I used to like to say that I enjoyed golf, but when I went out and golfed, the scatter plot of where my tee shots might go was massive. I might stripe one 270 right down the center of the fairway. That's possible at my best. More likely, I'm going to yank one 180 in either direction. I might swing and barely top it, and it might go 30 yards, right? That's in play too. The better you get at golf, the less variation there is between each of your shots. A great golfer isn't always great on every shot, but when they miss, they don't miss by that much, right? The scatter plot of Scotty Scheffler in a tee box is actually pretty narrow. Now, to him, the difference between his best and his worst shot off the tee can be pretty substantial, but if he hits 100 tee shots, 90 of them are going to be pretty close to each other because he's consistently good. In life, if you can be consistently good, then your final eulogy, your epitaph, your obituary, it's going to be really good. But even if you're really, really good, there's probably something you did in your life, whatever the worst thing you ever did, that if it defined you, people might well think you're an awful human, right? Whatever it is when you're watching me right now, whatever it is when you're listening to me right now, you know whatever the worst thing you've ever done in your life is. And sometimes we find out in criminal courts about people, right? You might have killed somebody. That's pretty bad. Now, there's different ways to kill somebody. You could be guilty of first-degree murder, where you intentionally killed somebody, or somebody could have been running in front of you and you were driving a car and you didn't do anything wrong and you hit them. So there's different variations there for most people. And by the way, you might have been a cop. You might have been a soldier, and you might have killed somebody. It might be justified. So there are exceptions, but for most people, the worst thing you would do in your life might be kill somebody, right? Most people, that's not going to be the case, thankfully. Most of us are not going to kill anybody in our lives. But whatever the worst thing you ever did, imagine that it was all anybody ever talked about. That's the Democrat Party. Really, the Republican Party to me is the party of ceilings, and the Democrat Party is the party of floors. And once you see it, you can't escape it. Ceiling is aspirational. I want to talk about the best thing somebody did, right? Let's use a historical figure. Thomas Jefferson. Pretty good history, right? Pretty good obituary on the positive. Wrote the Declaration of Independence. Kind of a good thing. Kind of a good thing to have done. I'd like to have that on my resume. It's better than writing the book Balls. If you gave me the choice, Clay, you can either write the Declaration of Independence or you can write what will soon be, hopefully, a best-selling book called Balls. I think I would take the Declaration of Independence. And if you told me, hey, Clay, you can do an internet show or you can do the Louisiana Purchase, I think I would go, hey, I'll do the best land deal in the history of America. I'm going to buy most of North America from France in 1803 for virtually nothing, as opposed to doing an internet show. I think most of you out there would say, yeah, I'd like to have the Louisiana Purchase on my resume. Found the University of Virginia. Not a bad thing. Become the nation's third president. Pretty good. A lot of really good things on Thomas Jefferson's resume. Helped to create a brand new country that is going to be the premier voice for freedom in the history of the world. Again, pretty good resume, pretty good obituary. On the contrary, also fathered a child, probably, with a slave. Oh, that's not great. Thankfully, I have not written the Declaration of Independence. I have not been elected president of the United States. I have not founded an illustrious university. I have not done the greatest land deal in the history of North America. Jefferson's got me there. But on the negative, I also haven't had a kid with a slave or owned any slaves. Now, rational, realistic people would say, okay, all of us, Jefferson is an extreme example of extreme excellence, but also of extreme negative decision-making. All of us have some version of that, but Jefferson's a great example. What do we choose to focus on when someone's life is over? The great things that they did or the not so great things that they did? To me, the Democrat Party is effectively the floor party. I only want to talk about the dirty, nasty, sordid, poor choices the country has made. And that, to me, is representative of the larger story of America. That is, hey, let's only talk about slavery. Let's only talk about oppression. Let's ignore America's progression towards more freedom for more people, more wealth for more people, the fact that our innate history, I believe, bends towards righteousness. That's not the story we want to tell. We just want to go minutely examine all the flaws. We want to look at the floor. And then on the flip side, I would argue the Republican Party says, hey, we want to think about America at its best. We want the story of America to be the ceiling, not the floor. And I think once you notice this, you can't not notice it because it's not just the story you tell about the country. It's not just the story you tell about an individual. It's also the story that you tell about yourself. Are you a person who focuses on the good things, or are you a person that focuses on the bad things? And I think like you can use even an example like ESPN. Hulk Hogan dies because ESPN's been taken over by identity politics. What story did they tell? Oh, Hulk Hogan once used a racial slur. That's the story that ESPN ran on the day Hulk Hogan died because he's a white guy. Kobe Bryant, suspended for a gay slur, credibly accused of rape. Some negatives in Kobe Bryant's past. When he dies, Kobe's a hero because he's a black guy. My standard is I want to give the benefit of the doubt to everyone, and when they die, I want to focus on the positive things that they did. To me, the story that we tell, that Colin Kaepernick told, is America is an awful place. He told the floor. And ultimately, because America is not an awful place, there's always a market to the floor, but the market to the floor doesn't work. I wouldn't have a 20-year history in media now if I only told negative stories. Because the market for negative stories eventually runs out. People don't want to turn on a show and have every show be an energy vampire, where I suck away all your good energy and I leave you feeling like a vampire who just came and sucked all your blood out and you're just laying there and you got nothing left. Most people want to focus on ceilings. They want to be inspired. And I was thinking about that when I saw the front page of the New York Times. Why has the Democrat Party lost registered support in all 30 states? And why has the Republican Party surged in support in all 30 states? These are places where you can be a Democrat or Republican. I think it's the story being told. The Democrat Party is effectively telling the story to people. You're a victim. You're a victim of capitalism. You're a victim of racism. You're a victim of transphobia. You're a victim of homophobia. The country is using you and beating you down. And over time, that's not a story that enables success. It's one that reinforces victimization. And the Republican Party's telling a different story. Hey, we're the party of opportunity. We're the party of individual excellence. We're the party of the meritocracy. And over time, people respond to that. Worked for me. I used to vote Democrat. I now vote Republican. I've been honest with you about every vote I've ever cast in my entire life. I don't expect you to agree with me on everything. In fact, I expect you to challenge me. I expect you to think for yourself. Why are young men overwhelmingly moving towards the Republican Party? Because they want to be sold on America's ceiling, not America's floor. And when you are constantly focused on the floor, it ultimately demeans what everybody can accomplish. Now, I also think the Democrat Party has major structural problems with just basic messaging. And I think some things are complicated, right? I'll be honest with you. Tax policy is complicated. What should the top sales tax be in any individual city or state? What should the top individual income rate? Now, I can tell you, I think we need lower tax rates. I want individuals to have more money in their pocket. You can agree or disagree with me. I don't believe in socialism. I don't believe in communism. I want to let individual excellence flourish. I believe in the meritocracy. I want everybody to make as much money as possible based on their own unique individual talents. That's my economic worldview. Some people disagree with that. That's fine. But there are some things that crystallize parties. And when you tell me, hey, a man can become a woman and win a women's sports championship. That is not true. A man cannot become a woman. Biology is real. Men are bigger, stronger, faster than women. When you tell me something that I know is untrue, not that I disagree with, but I know to be factually untrue, and you tell me that I have to believe it, in many ways, I'm a rebel at heart. If you tell me that I have to do anything, I don't want to do it. But if you tell me I have to believe, if you tell me I have to believe something that I know 100% is not true, I can't trust you on anything. So when you tell me, hey, Leah Thomas, a hero, as ESPN did just a couple of years ago, Leah Thomas, the Jackie Robinson of trans sports. I'm sorry, a dude with a dick putting on a women's bathing suit and winning a women's championship does not make him a woman. And I'm not willing to say that he is. In fact, I think everything you argue then I question, because you are trying to get me to lie and tell you something that I know 100% is not true. And if I know something that you are telling me is 100% not true, if you are lying to me, and not only lying to me, demanding that I accede to your lie, how can I trust you on anything? I think that's where younger men and where many people out there who are just reasonable and not particularly political in nature are when it comes to leaving the Democrat Party. Okay. So I think what's happening with the Kaepernick documentary getting scrapped is the telling the floor story of America is not something that Americans aspire to. Kaepernick told the floor story. And America now, even ESPN, is rejecting that story. ESPN's viewers don't want to be told that America is an awful country, that Cuba has better governance, as Kaepernick argued, than the United States. People don't want to hear that. They don't want to see it. The purpose of sport is excellence, is the ceiling. What do we talk about when we talk about sports performance? We typically don't say, hey, that guy struck out 12 times in a row. We focus on achievement. That guy hit a grand slam walk-off home run. The entire purpose of keeping stats is about trying to find out who can be better. We never talk about who's the worst. It's LeBron versus Jordan. I've never heard a sports fan argue who is the worst player to ever play in the NBA. Sports conversation is aspirational. It's about attempting to set new horizons. And so when Kaepernick is dragging us down into the muck, into the nasty parts of history, what he's ultimately doing is profoundly anti-sports and anti-meritocracy. And that is all identity politics is, because it rejects excellence in favor of examining whatever dirty laundry any individual has. Now, I'm not saying that a really great biography of Thomas Jefferson should only talk about the positives. But I come back time after time after time to the historian Taylor Branch, who was phenomenal. Wrote a history of America in the civil rights years. I encourage you to read it. A long time ago, he said, I'm getting a lot of criticism for what I'm saying about Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was a serial philanderer. On the day he was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, on that balcony, there was a side chick in his hotel room. Go read history. They were concerned about how to get the mistress out of Martin Luther King's hotel room without his wife knowing on the day he got assassinated. This is all true. But Taylor Branch said, I'm paraphrasing him. So I'm getting a lot of criticism about including some of the parts of Martin Luther King's life that were not great, not ideal for a preacher to be banging people left and right that he was not married to. Kind of a sin. And he said his response was, look at all that Martin Luther King Jr. accomplished, even with all of those personal flaws. Imagine what you can accomplish with absolutely no personal flaws of your own. It's a great answer, because what it addresses is the innate imperfection of all humans. And what Taylor Branch was telling us was, this book is being written because of the ceiling. It has to include the floor, but the reason people like Martin Luther King Jr. matter, and the reason people like Thomas Jefferson matter, is not because they were perfect. It's because they reached a level of success at their apex that was higher than most of humanity, and in so doing, they elevated the rest of us higher than we would have been if they had never existed at all. And so, to me, Kaepernick is the floor. He's the floor of sports. He isn't the most talented quarterback. He didn't win a Super Bowl. He didn't elevate any of us to a higher level than we might have otherwise achieved, which is ultimately the aspirational goal of all sports. And so, that, I think, is ESPN maybe not understanding it in the context in which I just laid it out, but ultimately recognizing that the reason why the market for Kaepernick has collapsed is ultimately the market for the worst of humanity is not reflected in the market of sports fandom at all. We all talk about the GOAT. We never talk about the WOT, worst of all time. In fact, you probably never even heard that phrase, because sports is about excellence. All right, that wasn't planned, but I do think it is instructive of the world in which we are in right now, why Democrats are losing ground, why Kaepernick is vanishing in terms of his significance. I also think this goes to Trump himself. All of Trump's critics have gotten it wrong. Trump doesn't want to be a warmonger. He wants to be a peacemaker. Trump wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize desperately. Ukraine, candidly, does not matter very much to my day-to-day existence or your day-to-day existence if you live in America. I think when all those European leaders came to the White House on Monday, and with all that Trump is trying to do right now in Washington, D.C., he's trying to limit the number of people that die. He's trying to bring peace to the world and also to the streets of our nation's capital. It makes zero sense. Think about this. London, fabulous city. I love it. It's a great place to visit. I want to go back again soon. It's a history nerd's paradise. London has 1/30 the violent crime rate of Washington, D.C. Let me put that in another context. You are 30 times as likely to be murdered in Washington, D.C. as in London. How can anybody defend that? How can anybody of good conscience defend the fact that we in America, if we visit our nation's capital, are 30 times as likely to be murdered as if we visit the capital of England? That makes no sense. Same thing is true of Paris. Same thing is true of virtually every European capital. It's because we just accept a certain level of violence and we don't challenge it at all. Okay, much less serious. We have got a video here. I'm going to try this. I think I'm going to have to do it maybe Saturday. I love this. RFK Jr. and Pete Hegseth. I like physical challenges. I like trying to see if I'm capable of doing something. Never going to dunk a basketball. Never going to run a 4.5 40. But I'm pretty good at push-ups. And I'm okay at pull-ups. And as 46-year-old dads go, some of you saw the video. I bench pressed 185 10 times. Adam, does that make me the strongest person at OutKick? Is there anybody that could bench press more than me at OutKick? I know it makes me certainly one of the strongest people in sports media, and certainly one of the strongest people in media. I don't think anybody at all at OutKick. We got 75 employees, whatever the heck it is now. I think this is kind of an indictment of the rest of the OutKick crew. Most of them are younger than me. In fact, I think of the people that are on it, well, I guess Dakich is older than me. So I don't, well, somebody's saying they can beat me. I don't think that's true. But on the bench press, I don't think anybody can do 185 10 times. My weight, my body weight 10 times. It's hard to do pull-ups. So I think we've got a graphic here of RFK Jr., who said he works out in jeans and a belt because he told this to Jesse Waters last night because he just got used to doing hikes and he would go straight into the gym. Still weird. I would not work out in the gym. But I said, this is great. It's really hard to do. Every morning, in fact, I did it this morning. Most mornings, before I do my radio show, before I do this show, I do 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, and 100 squats. Takes me 12, 13 minutes. I try to go fast, get my heart rate up a little bit. I'm very good at push-ups. I'm good at bench pressing. So their challenge was 50 pull-ups and 100 push-ups in 5 minutes or less. That is crazy. I could easily do 100 push-ups in under 5 minutes. I think I could do 50 pull-ups in under 5 minutes. Doing them both together is absolutely bonkers level good fitness. And so I think do we have a video of these guys doing this that we can play for you? I'll challenge all of you. I'm going to try to do this in under 10 minutes. So I am this weekend going to try to do 100 push-ups and 50 pull-ups in under 10 minutes. And I will tell you whether I'm able to do that. I think that's a good challenge. And my thought is, some of you may have a different way that you're going to do it. I think the best way to do it is, and the challenge is also that you're going to spend time shifting, right? Ideally, you would be like, hey, I'm going to rep out 100 push-ups straight, and then I'm going to do 50 pull-ups straight, or vice versa, because then you don't have the change. But that's really hard to do. I think the way to do it is 5 pull-ups and 10 push-ups and just cycle back and forth. So you would do 10 sets of each, and I think I could do 10 push-ups and 5 pull-ups in 1 minute 10 times. Does that make sense? So that's why I think I could do it in under 10 minutes. But doing it in 5 or less is bonkers level incredible. So I don't know if we have a video to play, but that's my challenge to all of you. A couple of other stories that are out there. Superman. Remember when I talked about Superman and I said, man, this was stupid of the director to decide to come out and say, hey, that he believed that Superman was political because Superman was an immigrant. I was like, what is this moron thinking? The new Superman, that is the one that was just released, is actually going to underperform, according to Variety magazine, the Superman that came out before it, Man of Steel, that everybody said was awful. So people say, oh, you talked about this, Clay, and then you didn't talk about it anymore. I was waiting to see the data. And the data is Warner Brothers is going to lose money on the new Superman. They're going to get, for the math, half of the money out there for the overall theater revenue. The marketing campaign and the cost of the film and all those other things, they're going to lose money on this movie. And it is not going to make as much money as the original did. So all of that is absolutely an indictment of just making a good, old-fashioned American superhero movie. Now, there may also be superhero fatigue. So that might be factoring in as well. I think we got a Prize Picks read. Can we pull that up? And then also, MSNBC has changed the name of the network to MS Now. Here's the challenge for you guys tomorrow. Can you make a graphic that makes this very funny? And we'll talk about it tomorrow on the show. I believe that MSNBC, the new graphic should be menopause. And I tweeted this out with pause spelled PAWS. So all the childless cat ladies of America have a cat's paw in the logo to actually represent the people that are actually watching MSNBC. Okay, give me that read, and then I got to bounce. This is Prize Picks. I love it. It's available in California. It's available in Texas. It's available in Florida. 40-plus states, 13 million-plus people playing. It makes sports more fun than it otherwise would be. College football starts this weekend. NFL preseason underway. If you love football as much as I do, you should go to prizepicks.com today. Use code OutKick. You get $50 when you play $5. Easy to play. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 different projections, and you put in $5 and you get $50. Have some fun. If you love football like I love football, download the Prize Picks app today. Code OutKick, $50 in your account when you play $5. California, Texas, Georgia, Florida, my home state of Tennessee. Play today. Download the Prize Picks app and use code OutKick. That's prizepicks.com, code OutKick. All right. Roll it over. Challenge to make that graphic to the team. We'll talk about MS Now tomorrow and more. SEC win totals. I think I told you that I would talk about that, and I did not. Was there any other topic, Adam, that I said I would discuss that I did not end up discussing? I think I hit all of them. Roll over everything else, including the questions. YouTube, dive in the comments. Like the comments on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you are, and I will respond to some of them tomorrow. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'm Clay Travis, and this has been OutKick, the show.